So Mary, I want to start off, as I mentioned, one of the most powerful leaders in Wall Street, one of the most powerful women in Wall Street, and quite honestly, you're somewhat of an anomaly. Wall Street, male-dominated culture, and since the financial crisis, some would say that women's opportunities for advancement, where we still haven't seen a woman in those highest ranks, have actually gone backwards in this industry, and that with things like gender pay gap and the like, that we're seeing, it's looking, quite honestly, bleak for women when other industries are breaking the mold. Do you think the Wall Street is going backwards?
I don't, but before I get started answering that question, and I'm not trying to avoid the topic, but I don't know if anyone else will say this to you. I think we all owe Maura a huge round of applause for what she's done for the movement of women, because without her, we wouldn't all be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
And so we're all very thankful. And no, of course not. Of course, we're not moving backwards. We're not necessarily moving forwards, but we're not moving backwards. And a lot of that comes from sort of where we were versus where we are right now. Because where we were was a world that was very difficult to have sort of gender equality, and the workforce, there weren't the tools and the acceptance of what there is today. And so when you think about what technology does today for the young people who enter the workforce and want to figure out ways to balance their life, work from home on a day, do different things, that wasn't even available to people before. So if you think about the time with which that goes through, by the time you have 30 years of work, you have to think about where you started 30 years ago. When you think about where we are today, we now have more women BAs than male BAs entering into the workforce on Wall Street. It's a fabulous place to learn and to be trained, and you can do lots of things. But I think technology fundamentally changes everything. I dropped I have 3 young daughters. I dropped them off at school this morning, and my routine is I sit in the back of the 3rd row of the Suburban in between all the kids. And I was reading the papers, and there was a section on diversity. The Financial Times has a pull-out on diversity today. You should grab it. It's a competing publication, but it's still worth reading every once in a while.
Once in a while.
And so the 11-year-old, the 9-year-old, they're not paying attention, and the 7-year-old says, "What's diversity?" And I thought, hopefully it's something I don't even have to explain to you. Because hopefully by the time you're in the workforce and doing this, we will have made such great progress that you don't even have to know what it is. And I said, well, it's about balancing out, and she goes to an all-girls school. She has no concept of what I'm talking about. And so I stopped it there, and I said, I got to go make a speech.
Well, what do you think makes you such an anomaly? While there's still sort of signs of hope, you talked about technology and more women, advancing in certain areas, you're still an industry where a woman's never ascended to the highest position of leadership. How do you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I think time changes a lot of these things. I think a lot of these jobs, whether it's, in almost every area, a lot of these jobs are really grueling and tiring, and there is a zone where we lose a lot of people, where they're trying to balance starting a family, and you've got to figure out how you maneuver that time period, and we all have to do that with the people that work for us, which is trying to make sure that we don't lose them during that zone, and that they don't feel like their career has gone like this and they've been so successful, how awful it would be for them just to go flat for a year or two. That's okay. To make that feel totally okay, we have to be supportive of it. We have to make it public that that's okay. And then you won't get the things that we all know, which is people opt out before they even make their way. And I think we've just got to do everything we can to push them through that time period. Because I really think that's the heart of it, which is whatever the age group is, and now it's moving up, and now it's kids, people have kids in their 30s, but whatever that age zone is, we've just got to keep them to believe that you can have it all. You really can. You just can't have it all at the exact same time. And so you got to figure out how you're going to do that, and you got to give and take a little bit.
You've long been against any special treatment of women, been against quotas and the like. What needs to be done? You've talked a lot about that women need to take more charge of their career, not just the cultural systemic issues and institutions, but that women also need to play a greater role in moving that forward. Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I've been very public about the fact that I think that quotas are awful for us, but in many ways may be a necessary thing to do to get different places jump-started. They may very well be an important way to jump-start, but none of us here want to think, even for a split second, did I get my job because they wanted to check the box? Am I here because when there was a decision, one versus the other, they wanted to make a statement on diversity? We don't want that. We want to have our jobs because we're really darn good at what we do. We have a passion for it. We're subject matter experts, and they should have chosen us. But there are places in the world that don't think that way. And so I'm okay with quotas for that. I'm just not okay with them for sustained periods of time because we need to make sure that we've done our bit. For all of us, then, it's incumbent on us to make sure that we have gatherings like this and that we spend time making sure we know who each other are and support each other. And one of the things I'm not sure that women are the best at is supporting other women, but this room is. And so if we could take circles like this and make them happen all around the world, you could just make huge progress.
Why do you think women aren't that great at supporting each other?
I've thought about that a lot. I think you're so finally pleased to get where you get, and it's been so darn hard, and you're there. I'm not sure that I'm just not sure that first of all, we haven't had a lot of people in those positions, and second, now we have audiences like this where everyone is in those positions. I think women prioritize lots of things, and I will tell you for one, this is one thing I wish I could sort of redo in my life, and hopefully all of us can help people who are around us to do it better. I never, ever found time for networking or doing these kind of things. I thought to myself, like, who the heck has time to like go sit for the coffee thing or the women's network? Like, oh my God, you must have a lot of time on your hands if you're going to do that. Like, I got a lot to do. I'm very important. I have a lot of work to do. The reality is that's exactly what you have. That's exactly how you get a job. You get a job because other people know you, because if you don't get a job because you fill out a job posting and someone says, oh yeah, that's a really impressive resume. That's just not how the world works. And so we need to do that with each other, and everything will rise if we do that.
I want to go back to your career a little bit and talk about your trajectory. You started as a math major at Georgetown and were the only female math major at the time in your graduating class. What was that experience like for you?
Awful. I mean, I have no idea why I chose that major. It was easy for me, so I think that might have been why. And it just sort of got lonelier as we made it to the fourth year, barely. And you think to yourself, like, why am I doing this? And this is so awful. And all these other people have these fun topics, and they're talking to each other about it. And I'm sitting in like a computer lab filling out little dots, because the cards, you don't even know what I'm talking about. But and then you realize, like, no, I can do it. Like, and I think actually that's probably what was very formational for me, which is eventually, like, I didn't know any better, and so I didn't think about it as me being the only woman who was going to graduate with it. I was just like hanging out with the math nerd guys, and so we did that alone and together. But I think that's sort of what happens, which is, as you go through your career, the more you focus on, oh, I'm the only woman, or oh, I don't have time to, I have no one to network, or oh, they're doing the golf thing and I can't. Like, I don't spend any time thinking about that. You can't. You gotta just be there and say, I'm gonna be a subject matter expert in whatever they give me. And if I can be a subject matter expert in even just one thing, I say to the young people, like, I use this saying, I go, just be a subject matter expert in like how the fax machine works. And they look at me, they're like, the what? I go, we must still have fax machines somewhere around here, don't we? You just have to be a subject matter expert in something. And if you are the best at that something, you will find people not saying, oh, I have to take Mary to the meeting. You'll find them saying, where's Mary? I need to take her to this meeting. She's the subject matter expert in this thing. And that is the key skill for all of our people as they grow up, to make sure once they are, and then if you're a boss of that person and you see that they're a subject matter expert in A, I'll take a chance that they could probably be a subject matter expert in B, and even C, and D, and E. Which then leads to the topic of, why are women so nervous about like that next job or that next promotion? And it's because of that. We're such good subject matter experts that when someone says, I would like you to do a job of A plus B and C, we say, well, I don't know B and C. I'd really have to think about that. Oh my gosh, like how am I going to learn this? And
how did you learn that? What career transition for you was the scariest, where you were given a new set of responsibilities that you didn't feel prepared for? How'd you learn that lesson?
Every single one of them. I mean, every single one of them is scary. But and every single one of them, the funniest part of it is, I have people where I will give a job promotion to, and if it's a woman, I'll go to her and I'll say, I'd really like you to think about taking this new expanded role. And she'll inevitably look at me and say, oh my gosh, that's really great. And 3 seconds later, but I don't know if I have the skill set to do that. I've never done this, and I'm not sure about this, and are you sure I'm not? And if I had that exact same conversation with a male that works for me, they look at me like, well, that's all you're going to give me? Like, when do I get your job? And there's just a wiring difference. And so we have to be able to say, like, of course I don't know the other pieces of the job, otherwise I would have had that job already. That's the whole point. It's called a promotion. You're being promoted into something you don't know. Take it, go for it, do it, and you'll be better than anybody else because you have been a subject matter expert in things as you've gone through. But every one of them is, of course they're scary, but you cannot let them see that those are nerve-wracking moments. You just can't. You have to be that, that duck that kind of sails across. The feet can be scrambling down below the water. The purse can be falling out, all the stuff, but you just have to be that cool, calm.
I want to talk about some of the formative experiences in your career. You have been in money management, your entire career, which is, the job of maintaining wealth and growing wealth is a huge responsibility. Managing individuals' money is a huge responsibility. Describe the first time you lost a significant amount of money for a client, and what did you learn from it?
Oh. I won't bore you with the details, but it was I was a bond manager in the crisis of 1998, which was when bond yields rose really fast. So just get ready for that. It's happening soon. It'll come to a theater near us this year or maybe next. And all of a sudden, all the things we were buying, they look like regular things that you would own. And don't worry, they're bonds. They pay 7% coupons, and you just hold them until they mature. Until the prices drop 20%, and someone says, well, that looks like a stock, not a bond. Like, what happened? And I happen to have been managing a number of portfolios with emerging markets debt in them. And I had to go to one client who lost $20 million on my watch. He had plenty of money, don't worry, but I don't know, it's still $20 million. Like, it's a lot of money. And I don't actually know how it happened, but I remember that the outcome was a much better one than what it could have been. I got the courage up to get on a plane the morning after it happened. I flew to Louisiana. I went and sat in front of him and I said, I'm sorry, and here's how it happened, and here's why it happened, and we move forward. And that was probably the best lesson learned. I bet someone told me to do that. I don't know. I can't remember sort of how it happened. But the fact that it did changed everything I did forever. I mean, we have all sorts of issues that happen every day now, right? and there's a lot of money, and a lot of things go wrong, and you just, you step right into it, and you say, this is life, and you hired me to do this, and I'm doing the best job I can, and this happened, and I'm still going to do the best job I can tomorrow morning. And you just don't shy away from it, and I think that's helped a lot.
Life presents inevitable setbacks and unexpected obstacles, and I often talk to leaders who cite those setbacks and those failures often as some of the most formative in propelling them forward, the most formative in helping them achieve the success that they've achieved. If you think of failure or a setback from that perspective, what's been one of your most successful?
So there was this awful moment I have, and there's somebody in the audience here who shares the same mentor as me, Alexandra Leventhal, and I have somebody who works at JP Morgan, who's vice chairman of JP Morgan, Jimmy Lee, and I had taken this new job now, reporting to Jamie Dimon, and then on the operating committee of this big bank. And it was right after the crisis of 2008, and the world was shaky, and we were buying companies to try and help shore up whatever we could in the world. And I had this big job, and I was working as fast as I could, but I was sort of still doing the old job. Does this sound familiar? Do your old job and do the new job, and you can't figure out what's happening. And I will never forget, he sits around the corner from me, and he walked in my office, and he closed the door, and he stood there. And for 1 second, I thought, well, you're not my boss, so you really can't fire me. I'm not 100% sure what's happening here. And he closed the door, and he said, you need to get your act together. Right now. And I was like, am I having a bad hair day? Or what? I thought I was dressed pretty well. What? You are frazzled, and you are frazzling the people who work for you because of it. Get your act together, get your calendar together, stop being 3 minutes late for every meeting, be 3 minutes early to every meeting, and set the tone. And he walked out, and he slammed the door behind him. And I sat there and then you go through all these things when someone gives you honest feedback. Denial, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't have a job as crazy as mine. Mine's really busy. And he doesn't know how hard this is. And you go through that for however many hours you go through it. And I came in the next morning, and from that morning forward, I am religious about my calendar. Every second of every day. There is a timer that we have 5 minutes before I'm supposed to leave for a meeting so that I can be 5 minutes early. There's a scheduling of everything from the phone call that I have to make that's going to take 7 minutes to the chance that they have to call me back, so I need the zone where they might call me back, to the call my mother thing, to the date night thing, to the, everything is in the calendar, and it has to be, because you have to choose what you're going to get done, not the calendar owning you and finding yourself incredibly frazzled.
Speaking of incredibly frazzled, you ascended very quickly at JP Morgan, all while having 3 daughters. Your daughters are still very young, ages what, 7 to 11?
Yep.
Which is, a full-time job in and of itself, let alone what you're doing now. And a lot of different points when you receive these promotions and had that spotlight, some people questioned whether you could handle it. Young mom, at times you were pregnant and received sort of this spotlight. How did you react to that, and how do you set a culture where you can create other opportunities for women to ascend, and what advice would you give them?
One of my promotions before running asset management, I got this big promotion to run the JP Morgan Private Bank, which is a big and global business. And I had just had my second child. And when you go from 1 to 2, it's exponential. Nobody told me that the person pretty high up in the firm actually asked, can she do it because she just had a baby? Are we sure we want her to do this? The good news is no one told me that, because you already have your fears about, can I handle this and can I do this? And and my boss shielded me from that and didn't tell me that until about 5 years afterwards. That's probably one of the best lessons learned also, which is, our job has to be shielding people from the stuff that we hear because we're in very senior positions. They can't know it. Because by the way, those people are old-fashioned in their thinking. And they won't be in the new generation. So we just have to assume they don't understand, and they don't know how the world works anymore. And they don't know what an inspiration it is if you put someone in that just had a baby and that can do it. And oh my gosh, what that changes for the culture of a firm to be able to say, well, if she can do it, of course I can do it. Of course I don't have to opt out of the workforce. Of course I can find my way through this stuff. And I'm so thankful I didn't know that, because that's hard to mentally process.
I cannot imagine.